Good morning, Dadeville, Alabama. It is good to be with you today through Facebook. I hope that you are having a blessed day. I got up early this morning and it is very cool outside. So I'm coming to you from my dining room here at 62 Fawn Lane. And I think it's good to do that because if you look over behind me, you see these mosaic tiles that we have on our wall. And I wanted to share those with you today because they are very meaningful to me. They came from the Holy Land when I was able to go over there several years ago. It was one of the greatest trips I've ever made because it's one of the most wonderful places on earth. And it's wonderful not because they are a holy nation. They're not. Israel is a very secular nation filled with unrighteousness and unholiness. But it's wonderful because it's the place where Jesus walked. And I got to walk the streets of Jerusalem, and I got to go to Jordan, and I got to go into the Jordan River. And it was just a wonderful experience for me and for all who go there because you get to see places that you've only read about in the Bible. And I want you to understand something today that as I share with you these promises from the book of Isaiah, you need to understand that every time in God's prophecies where there was a message of judgment, there was also a message of hope. Where there was gloom and doom, there was also a message of peace and love and righteousness. And that's the same thing we have in the book of Isaiah. And this particular chapter, Isaiah chapter 54, it follows on the heels of the passage about the suffering servant in Isaiah 53. The suffering servant being Jesus, who gave himself on the cross of Calvary so that we might have life and have it more abundantly. And this is an important message to the people of Israel because they needed to understand the true mission of the Messiah. But do you know that to this day the rabbis refuse to read Isaiah 53? They warned their people not to read Isaiah 53 because they don't want them exposed to this powerful truth that's in God's Word. And yet, in the midst of danger, in the midst of despair, there is no greater promise anywhere than what you see in Isaiah chapter 53. But immediately following that in Isaiah 54, there's another prophecy of hope and restoration. And that's an amazing promise. Because if you know the history of Israel, you know that on multiple occasions they faced almost total devastation and destruction. In 721 BC, the Assyrians came and attacked the northern tribes and carried them off into exile to Assyria. 587 BC, the Babylonians did the same to Judah, the southern kingdom. They carried the Jewish people into exile in Babylon. When finally they were able to return to Israel and begin the process of rebuilding, they suffered from the hands of raiders that would constantly come against them. Finally, the nation became a thriving nation only to be overcome by the Roman Empire and then totally destroyed in 70 AD, never to exist again as a nation until 1948. And you see, all of this happened because Israel was chosen as God's people, but they kept turning their backs on him. They kept refusing to serve him. They kept refusing to obey him. And that's always been the promise of God. His promises have been, if you follow me, I will bless you. If you rebel against me, I will bring judgment to you. But here's the reason why. His judgment is always about drawing his people back to himself. And that's what he longs to do today. So let me tell you just a couple of things about Isaiah chapter 54. In the first 10 verses, we have a message of hope and restoration and renewal. Let me just share with you this one verse well, actually two verses, in verses 2 and 3. He says, enlarge the place of your tent and let them stretch out the curtains of your dwellings. Do not spare, lengthen your cords and strengthen your stakes, for you shall expand to the right and to the left, and your descendants will inherit the nations and make the desolate cities inhabited. That was a promise that because all of the cities had been destroyed, God was going to restore them. And today in Israel, when you go there, that's exactly what you see. The cities are marvelous, modern structures that are covering the land. You see that truly the scientific discoveries in Israel are outpacing just about everyone else in the world. You see their natural resources are increasing in amazing fashion. You see that they are a people that have truly turned the deserts into gardens, the wastelands into beautiful places, just as the Bible said that they would in the last days. God has truly brought to them restoration and renewal in Israel, and yet they continue to turn their backs on God. You know why he does that? Because he also promises down in verse 8, he says, "With a little wrath I hid my face from you for a moment, but with everlasting kindness I will have mercy on you." See, once again, I think that because of what's happening in Israel, God is calling the people back to himself. He longs to be in a relationship with them again. Now, let me bring this up to modern day times. We've been doing these promises through Isaiah because of the darkness we find ourselves in due to the COVID-19 virus. We've all felt a little helpless and maybe even a little hopeless going through this. But the reality is that for most of us, probably most of us who are watching this, this has just been a minor inconvenience. For most of us, we've had to suffer through a little bit of social distancing and isolation. Maybe we haven't gotten to see our families like we did. Maybe we haven't been able to go like we used to go. Maybe we didn't have the freedom to do some of the things that we wanted to do. But we really haven't suffered much. We've struggled maybe a little bit emotionally, maybe a little bit spiritually, but we've not suffered physically. But for others, and maybe some of you who are watching today fall into that category. Maybe you are some of those who have lost your jobs, who are struggling just to get by, to put food on the table for your children. Maybe you're one of those that is scraping by on the food stamps and the unemployment that you're able to get. And you're saying, "Preacher, listen, we're having a rough time. This is the hardest time in our lives." Let me give you some hope here. If you're a child of God, God sees you. He knows where you are. He knows what's going on in your life. And just as he has promised with the people of Israel, he's made this promise to his people, to the church, to believers today. He says, "I'll never leave you nor forsake you." He says, "I'll always be with you." The catch is, he will be with us as we are obedient to him, as we are serving him, as we are doing what he's called us to do. So I want you to think about that this morning. And if you're one of those who are struggling today, give me a call, 256-565-9411. There are ways that the church can help you. There are organizations in our community that can help you. So let us know if you have a need. And I want you to hear me this morning when I say this. Be blessed today. Trust in the Lord, for he is your strength. God bless you.